Spain has seen a massive invasion of 60,000 migrants.
Spanish authorities are reporting 9 dead tonight after thousands of migrants flooded a tiny Spanish enclave earlier today.
That death toll has now risen to 72.
Authorities were overwhelmed by sea and land, so many people that Spain had to mobilize its military. Officials say as many as 3,000 migrants streamed in from Morocco into the tiny city of Ceuta in North Africa. A sea of people using inner tubes, flippers, and wetsuits, or going around, over, even through that border fence. Some of them struggling in the water hauled in by Spanish authorities. Officials say the city is now at a breaking point. Services are overwhelmed and people are sleeping in the street. It's become one of Spain's largest border crises, possibly spurred by a recent Spanish Supreme Court decision ruling that migrants who arrive by sea cannot be sent back without due process. And it's not the first time this has happened. In 2021, more than 8,000 people entered Ceuta in just 2 days.
Horror in Spain, about 20 fatalities, burning streets, looted shops and homes, Spaniards beaten and humiliated, services powerless, Christians left to fend for themselves. This is how leftist ideology ends. What's
You read a news article that said that if you came here, you could claim asylum and live in Spain. And you read that and then you decided to swim over.
It says Spain is open the door.
It said Spain has opened the door. This was on social media.
Yeah.
On what, on Twitter or Instagram? Or?
Facebook, Instagram. Everyone wants to be here.
Why don't you want to go home to Morocco?
No. Morocco? No, Morocco.
There's no money in Morocco.
NPR, Spain's Pedro Sanchez was a hero of migrants. After Ceuta, he faces his biggest challenge, Seville, Spain, when Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez stood in front of the media on Friday in Ceuta, the Spanish enclave bordering Morocco. He followed a routine that he has spent years perfecting, rallied his supporters, then reclaimed control of the narrative. By Saturday morning, the Spanish government had declared the situation under control, with the army mobilized in the region and the installation of a 500-meter floating barrier off its border with Morocco. Sanchez sent a letter to European counterparts, calling some of them out for attacking Spain. But the damage was already done. Images of tens of thousands of migrants crossing into Spanish territory from Morocco went around the world, eliciting comments from anti-immigration foreign leaders. U.S. President Trump called the crossing of migrants into Ceuta a catastrophe and an invasion, blaming what he called weak and very liberal laws in Spain. The U.S. State Department even posted on social media blaming the crisis on Sanchez's migration-friendly policies. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said the crisis in Spain showed the threat of irregular migration presents to European security and even temporarily suspended Italy's open border Schengen agreement with Spain, reimposing border controls for air and sea for travelers coming from the country. In Spain, Sanchez's political opponents also seized on the opportunity. The far-right Vox Party, which has increased its presence in the Spanish parliament in recent years on an anti-immigration platform, reacted to the incident by calling for the militarization of the border and the immediate deportation of all migrants who crossed, including minors. The center-right opposition party, Partido Popular, also called on the government to declare a national emergency, close the borders, and mobilize the army. The developments came at a challenging time for Sanchez, whose government has been consumed by the response to wildfires that have been devastating the country, including some of the largest on record. Sanchez is a savvy media player. In crisis after crisis, from COVID-19 pandemic to the deadly to the deadly 2024 floods in Valencia, to the country's blackout in 2025, and the present-day wildfires, he has managed to survive attacks from political opponents and stay ahead of the narrative. Spaniards even joke about his capacity to handle one crisis after another. The only thing left is an alien invasion. Well, it looks like you got your alien invasion. The reasons behind the sudden increase in border crossings are unclear. What started as a moderate increase in the number of border crossings at the Spanish territory of Ceuta turned into an open crisis on Thursday. Nearly 60,000 crossed the border in a matter of days. Authorities are reporting at least 67 people died, most of them drowned as they try to swim around a breakwater that separates the two countries. There have been previous attempts to cross the borders into Ceuta and Melilla, the other Spanish territory in the region, sometimes by charging it en masse. The last such episode in Ceuta took place in 2021 in what is now known as the crisis of the minors, because it mostly involved children swimming to Ceuta. Migrants attempting to cross into Ceuta often come from sub-Saharan African countries, and they might wait around these enclaves for months, even years, for the perfect opportunity to pass. But there's something different about this latest instance. Most migrants were Moroccan, and critics allege Moroccan law enforcement were absent and even complicit from the Moroccan side of the border at the most critical hours on Thursday, when thousands of migrants were freely crossing the border by foot, some of them women and kids, in what appeared to be a coordinated flow of people. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't see too many women and children here, do you? I think that after almost 48 hours since the beginning of the crisis in Ceuta, we can safely say that this is a manufactured crisis, said Riccardo Fabiani, project director for North Africa for the International Crisis Group. He added, "We have testimonies by some Moroccans who crossed into Ceuta. We have videos circulating online showing trucks full of people, unloading them in front of complicit Moroccan police forces." Morocco's ambassador to Spain said the situation in Ceuta had unfolded against Morocco's wishes. "We have always prioritized legal, orderly, and safe migration for all," Karima Benyak told the Associated Press. She did not comment on what prompted the migrants to cross into Ceuta. One possible factor for the influx is the recent Spanish Supreme Court ruling that eased deportation rules for minors or migrants entering Ceuta or Melilla. The July 8th ruling prevents law enforcement from being able to deport migrants who swim into the territories, reversing a practice of deporting them on spot without a legal process.
Spain, this Tuesday marks the deadline for a vast migrant regularization launched by the leftist government, with the final hopefuls scrambling to secure their legal status. The scheme was predicted to benefit around 500,000 people.
Some of the migrants who crossed said they read messages circulating on social media and messaging platforms about the ease of crossing the border into Ceuta and expected to be welcomed and taken to the Spanish mainland. Opportunity for right-wing parties. The influx of migrants into Ceuta has also allowed European right-wing parties to go on the attack. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni vowed Italy would not back down by a single millimeter when it comes to preventing illegal immigration. Italy's Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani framed the suspension of the free movement of people between his country and Spain as a necessary choice to protect the safety of our citizens and to defend the European borders, even invoking the threat of terrorism. On Saturday, Meloni co-initiated a letter signed by the majority of EU countries calling for an emergency meeting to discuss the border crisis in Ceuta and take immediate action to control Europe's external borders. This letter, signed by leaders of 22 of the EU's 27 states, has turned Spain's crisis into a continent-wide argument about Sanchez's comparatively liberal migration stance has become a liability for the whole bloc. Uncontrolled immigration is a threat to Europe and to Denmark, said Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, who also said the EU should consider suspending Schengen cooperation with Spain. Sanchez has indeed embraced migration-friendly policies, but he has never advocated for open borders or uncontrolled migration. Yeah, he did. His government can back this up with data that show that the number of illegal entries into Spain are lower than those of other European countries. His government has loaned and granted millions of euros to countries in West Africa to patrol their coasts and to stop migrants from leaving. The Spanish Civil Guard has deployed in the coast of Senegal and Mauritania to spot vessels trying to leave the coast. But Sanchez has been a strong supporter of regulated migration and recently approved residency and work permits for hundreds of thousands of eligible, undocumented migrants living in Spain. The government reported receiving over 1 million applications. In February, Sanchez penned an op-ed in the New York Times defending his stance on regulated migration. He said Spain's economy was booming, in part thanks to the country's embrace of migrants. Governments can buy into the zero-sum thinking of the far right and retreat into isolation, scarcity, selfishness, and decline, he said. It can harness the very same forces that, not without some difficulties, have allowed our societies to thrive for centuries. For me, the choice is clear. But the reality is that Sanchez has become an increasingly lone voice when it comes to this open stance on immigration in Europe. This week's events in Ceuta will test his well-known resilience and ability to stand his ground against mounting pressure.
Quiero pedirles a las personas migrantes y racializadas que por favor no nos dejen solas con tanto facha. Y claro que sí queremos que voten, claro que sí, hemos conseguido papeles, regularización ya, y ahora vamos a por la nacionalidad o a cambiar la ley para que puedan votar, por supuesto. Ojalá, teoría del reemplazo, ojalá podamos barrer de fachas y de racistas este país con gente migrante, con gente trabajadora. Claro que yo quiero que haya reemplazo, reemplazo de fachas, reemplazo de racistas, reemplazo de vividores. Y que lo podamos hacer con la gente trabajadora de este país, tenga el color de la piel que tenga, sea china, negra, marrona, con todas compañeras las gentes trabajadoras de este país.